Today I'd like to speak about Arnica, Montana, most famous homeopathic medicine for trauma, especially trauma affecting soft tissue, such as which occurs after a blow of any sort to the muscles, and often accompanied, almost always accompanied by bruising or the sensation of being bruised. And it's very famous, and most people who know very little about homeopathy always know how to use Arnica for any kind of trauma. But there's another side of Arnica which I'd like to mention in the following case of a 70-year-old woman who came in a couple of years ago complaining of extreme pains in her left upper arm and also in other areas. And she said, quote, "It feels like someone is ripping my arm off. All the muscles are being ripped." So it was a rather strong statement of the pain. And she felt beaten. But she had not been in any trauma, any physical trauma. Nobody had beaten her. She hadn't been in any accident. Nothing had happened. So I asked her if anything difficult had been happening in her life or in her husband's life, and she said yes. The worst thing in our whole life, she said, is about our land. And she and her husband had lived on this 23 acres in East Texas, and 11 of the acres her husband had inherited. The other 12 had been deeded to him. And he had recently filed the deed in the local county. Then one day a survey team appeared. He left the survey team on, and a few days after that, a group of off-duty law enforcement officers swarmed over the property and started threatening them. One of them said, "What right do you think you have to this land?" Another one threatened to grab him out of his living room and take him to jail. Anyway, he stood his ground, and eventually they left. But then a few days later, they came back with a bulldozer and brazenly bulldozed down a couple of acres of his trees. All of this totally illegal in a very corrupt county in Texas. So I asked my patient how she reacted to this, and she just said it was, quote, "the absolutely worst thing to happen to us in our whole lives." She felt she was confronting supremely evil people. So it turns out that in the original proving of Arnica done by Hahnemann, it has fear of the coming evil. So I gave her a dose of Arnica, and when I saw her a few weeks later, she was feeling 75 to 85% better. And I will quote from what she said at that time. She said, "I was really bad when I saw you 3 weeks ago. That pain was excruciating. It was like, please God, take my life. You know, within minutes of taking Arnica, my feeling of hopelessness disappeared. It made me feel like a human being again. I was feeling like a poor little donkey they beat until he falls down in the mud." So she also said her emotional state was much better. She said, "I was really, really depressed. I'm a lot more cheerful now, not so worried about the land." So this case illustrates how a very fearful situation can result in musculoskeletal pains. So the medicine Arnica treated the anguish that she was experiencing and the sensation as though bruised. So it's a beautiful example of how one medicine can affect in a very good way both the mind and the body. Thank you.